Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 138 of Let Me Get That Potograph. We are back. My name, as always, is the DH, and joining me is my awesome co-host, Mr. Scott Rappaport. What's up, buddy? Missed you, man.
I know, that week off kind of dragged on longer and longer, and it was still a week, but it just, felt like 10.
Oh man, you're not kidding. In between my travel, which apologies guys, my travel, which we'll get to in a minute, made us miss last week. Apologies to that. But yeah, between the travel, then getting back, having my parents come the next day, and then Jude's birthday and his birthday parties this weekend. You want to talk about a long week? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but at least you don't have $5 gas by you yet.
No, it's only up to 4. So
yeah, it's coming, man. It's coming. And we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show because we had a segment coming up towards the end that I think is going to tie in nicely with what we're seeing out there in the real world outside of collectibles and cards and memorabilia and all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. But yeah, guys, so welcome to the show. As Scott said, we have a huge show for you guys today, so we're going to dive right into it. And as I said last week, guys, of course, you noticed we didn't have our show. I was out traveling down at Collecticon, which is it's a brand new show this year. It's a traveling show, which is something that on this show, quite a bit, you guys remember, I talked about quite a bit that I thought we'd see some of these type of shows. But Collecticon, really cool traveling show that focuses on everything, everything from Funkos to TCG to sports. It really handles everything, but was down in Orlando for the first Collecticon, the kickoff of the year. And it was awesome, man. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun.
So when the traveling aspect of it, you're talking about how they do the different Comic-Cons in different cities, obviously San Diego being the biggest, but they're anticipating it being kind of like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Simple enough. I mean, it's pretty, I saw the pictures you posted. I saw a lot of the social media that came out around it, and it seemed like a really cool show, having gotten into the TCG stuff of, a couple years ago myself, that's something I probably should have hopped on a plane and gotten down to.
Well, the good news is they're going to be coming all around the country. There's one in Kansas City later in the year. There's ones that are going to be coming across the country. There's one here in Charlotte. The next one's in Dallas. The show was really cool. They're billing it, as TCG, Funko, all that stuff, but then also sports cards. Now, this one collided, of course, with Culture Collision. Nice little pun there. But, so there was the most shocking thing to me was the lack of sports cards there. There was maybe 3 booths that had some sports cards. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of the big dealers were at Culture Collision, the big sports dealers that would probably have made that trip down to Orlando. Because, let's face it, it's a 6 to 8 hour drive, depending on how slow you drive from Orlando to Atlanta. So, yep. I think that may have had something to do with it. I'm going to be really interested to see, as we're going to all of them this year, to see if the sports picks up a little bit. But man, the one thing that I took away from Collecticon, if anything, was just how on fire the TCG market is. And I'm not talking Pokemon and Magic. Yes, those are huge. Those are always going to be big. They're going to be around forever. I'm talking things like, obviously, MetaZoo, people, that's the hype of everything. But there are multiple crowd-funded, kick-started projects that are starting to come out now. One of them in particular, called Titan TCG, their booth was full all weekend. They were putting out some incredible stuff. There was an endless line to play this game. And I talked to a lot of people as they were leaving, and they were like, this is something amazing. This is something incredible. And so I went to a couple of different booths of these new companies that are coming out, and I wanted to gauge the response of the people that were visiting and not the owners, because obviously the owners are going to prop up their product as much as they can.
And keep in mind, Drew, with these Kickstarter-based projects, 8 out of 10 of them are going to be complete failures in the end.
Yes.
But it sounds like, and I saw a lot of the, the media that came around with, with Titan TCG, and I like what I saw. And I think that one, obviously we know MetaZoo is going to have staying power because it's got Tops behind it.
Yes.
But I shouldn't even say Tops anymore. It's got Fanatics behind it. And Titan, I think, is probably going to have some pretty good staying power. So what was the reaction that you got from the players?
They loved it. The Titan in particular, absolutely phenomenal gameplay, and I really like the company has a really good way of how they're putting out their boxes. They're really focusing on lower print runs. They're really taking things. You can tell it's a bunch of collectors. You can tell that this is a collector based and someone that really loves TCG. That's, this team is full on about making the gameplay fun. Now, that's what I got away from Titan the most, but you mentioned MetaZoo having that staying power because they have Fanatics behind it, and I'm not so sure about that. Now, I know they have Fanatics behind them, but as I spoke with people throughout the show, because the one thing I wanted to know was what were the games that people were playing. And one of the biggest critiques I got, which was a surprise to me because I didn't know much about MetaZoo at all outside of the name, was that not a lot of people are impressed with the playability. And so I'm a little concerned that, it's going to have that nice initial pop because it's something new. But when it gets down to, are people going to play it, or is this going to be a collecting type of thing? I heard rave reviews from every single person I talked to regarding something like Titan TCG, as opposed to tons of people saying that the playability of MetaZoo just wasn't what they were expecting. And so that was one of my biggest shocks outside of the lack of sports cards. That was one of the biggest shocks probably from Collecticon that I saw.
Well, a lot of the sports card guys bought into the early MetaZoo product. Yeah. And I haven't seen, believe it or not, I actually haven't seen that much of it opened. Yeah. I see a lot of the sealed wax changing hands at ridiculous prices, especially for the early, the early pieces. So I am curious to see, because, again, I can't see Tops or Fanatics letting something like that fail.
Right.
I'm actually curious. Did you see anything down there? Did Weiss Schwartz have anything set up for their Marvel TCG game?
No, not that I saw. They may have had a booth, but if it was so tiny and it was definitely not packed.
So they had a Marvel product that came out, Japanese release, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. I wound up ripping a box of that a couple weeks ago, and I have no idea how to play the game.
Right.
No clue. But the artwork is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
The different parallels of the cards are really, really nice looking. The way that they number them and the numbering convention on the card, it makes it very easy to identify which ones are the ultra rares and the, versus commons, and things like that. I've actually got a load coming back. Just got the grades on them today from SGC, and they grade well. At least the ones I sent in did. And everybody loves Marvel.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have a huge presence there, unless they're not planning on releasing an English language version of the product, which would be a disappointment.
That's interesting. Yeah, that would definitely be disappointing for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, Pokemon is the, I want to say the king of the hill, when it comes to that kind of, the TCG stuff, but, Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all that kind of stuff are up there too. And I'm sure they had a big presence down there as well, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned something that I kind of want to get your opinion on, because something else that's blowing up as in the hobby right now is a lot of stuff is really kicking off, is Harry Potter. We've seen a lot of Harry Potter stuff lately really exploding. And you mentioned just a minute ago that you've seen a lot of MetaZoo, but you've seen a lot of the boxes changing hands.
Yeah.
And it makes me almost wonder, I compare it to these Harry Potter sales I'm about to say. Are we seeing the people that can afford to buy these MetaZoo boxes passing them back and forth and trading to that elite group? And is that what's going on with Harry Potter? Or do you think this is something that's going to last? Is there an investment in this stuff, or is it a group of high-end people that are able, you know how it is. If you've got a couple of really people with an unlimited bank account, black card, whatever it may be, if they want to get in on something, there is that group of people that'll just sell it back and forth. It kind of feels like that's what's going on, because I don't see MetaZoo open. I don't see a million different things going with Harry Potter, but I see the same collectors.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with you can't really compare, the Harry Potter stuff with MetaZoo.
Well, I was more comparing to like the way it's being handled and the way it's being sold, I guess I should say.
It's possible there's some parallels to it, but you also got to keep in mind that, Harry Potter has been around for significantly longer than,
and it's on one of their anniversaries as well.
Correct. Yeah. And you have all of these people that grew up on the books and the movies and the theme parks,
right.
And we're talking over 20 years.
Yeah. It's got a lineage where MetaZoo's new.
Yeah, and you have all of these kids that grew up on Harry Potter that, all of a sudden are coming into money. Mm-hmm. Just like what happened a couple of years ago with baseball cards, where all of a sudden there was a small spike especially in the graded arena of the 80s cards that, used to be worthless. People are spending money on them to relive their childhoods.
Right.
And, those were a lot of people from our generation. I'm 42. So, I definitely grew up in the 80s, and, my first packs of cards that I opened were, 83, 84, 85, 86. And, I have an affinity for those cards.
Of course.
I loved when, 2021 Topps, they had the 86 design for the inserts. This year's 87, which has been, I love that too. But that area, the people that grew up that were, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old when Harry Potter came out are now 28, 29, 30, 32. Mm-hmm. They have jobs, some have families. They want to relive it with their kids, and, the way that they, and frankly, that's how I got into Pokemon, was because my son was into Pokemon.
Well, exactly. Same here.
So you have a different group of people that's getting into it for different reasons. And I think that may be affecting, especially, all these Bitcoin, millions out there. A lot of them are in that 28 to, 32 age range. It's like, all right, well, I got kids now, and, hey, Harry Potter,
right.
It's almost like, ooh, squirrel.
Right. Yeah.
And, you wind up in this situation where people are spending big money on it. And I have no idea if it's going to have any long-term value. Definitely Harry Potter as a franchise, whether it's, the books, the movies, the toys, the different merchandise, the theme park. It absolutely is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I do think it has the potential to hold some value for one reason, and that's because we're talking about Harry Potter cards, but there wasn't a lot printed. There's maybe 500 to 1,000 Radcliffe autos total. And, all the main characters, they don't have millions of autos. So, it could be something that's here to stay. And I see where the high prices are going. And like you said, they do have that cult following, a massive cult following. So,
well, I think the better parallel for the Harry Potter stuff is probably going to be Star Wars.
Yeah.
And, the franchise that's been around, it's got, it's not going anywhere. It's got staying power. Although Harry Potter's not really doing anything new, with that franchise, like the Star Wars franchises are, but the stars don't, even the Star Wars stars, don't really have a ton of autographs out there, even though, we see the Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and, those, Carrie Fisher autos and stuff like that out there. They're not out there in the massive quantities that you see the sports autographs. So I think that's a better parallel for it.
Sure.
And if it's any indication, obviously, depending on the product year and who's in it and things like that, Star Wars has some good years. They've got some bad, I wouldn't say bad years. They have some, years that are not quite as good as, previous ones. And then it goes back to, some amazing product. And I think it's going to get ruined now that, ever since Disney bought the thing. Mm-hmm. But as long as Harry Potter can stay out of Disney's hands, then I think it'll be okay. Yeah. I see the potential for the value increasing in that, compared to, the unknown of MetaZoo. And everybody was really trying to grab, 2 years ago, Pokemon started taking off, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic started, taking off even more, even though I think the Pokemon collectors, it's a wider subset of the industry. There's more people that, collect it, not so much play it. I don't even know how to play the damn thing. I know the cards have amazing art. Man. I know that, they're really cool looking. My son talks about all this stuff. It's like, all right, hey, well, it does this. It does. Well, okay, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
And I'm like, what can I, like, all right, I'm just going to look up and see what I can sell it for. Right. So I think, but then, Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, those people have always tended to kind of stay together. The people that got into the TCG stuff because the prices started going up, more of them went into Pokemon, but then you saw, because their values started shooting up, everyone's like, all right, well, let's see if we can create our own game. Yeah, and see if we can do that. And that's how we wound up with Titan and with MetaZoo and, the whole bunch of other ones that are out there that, long term, like I said, 8 out of 10 of them are probably going to be gone within 5 years.
I would agree with that. It's going to be interesting to see which ones come up. I'm sure a couple more will get crowdfunded and all that too, and we'll see some more games come out. But I do agree with you. I do think most are going to be gone in the next couple of years. But I do think out of all of this, from what I saw, I do think we are going to get 1 or 2 of them that may have that staying power that could last for quite a while. That's just what I got from the first Collecticon. I'm going to be interested to see, like I said, I will be going to all of them and working all of them for PSA submissions. So I will get a chance to see how it evolves, how the companies seem to be doing. And so it's going to be interesting to see when they, like the next show's in Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see in the hotbed of, hobby activity, how it's accepted there as opposed to Orlando and everything like that. But,
well, and what I think they need to do is they need to, if they want more of the sports stuff there, they really need to make sure that they don't schedule it, on at the same time as a major show. And the problem is with the sports stuff, there seems to be major shows popping up, pretty much every weekend.
Time. Yep.
We've got there's a show coming up this weekend.
Yeah, the Dallas show.
Okay, so Dallas is this weekend. Chicago's the weekend after that. The weekend after that is Mid Collective out in Vegas.
See you guys there.
Then the weekend after that, there's a fairly large show in Northwest Indiana that a lot of people actually come in from other parts of the country for. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, if it went up against that one, it's not going to be, I don't think it would get hurt too much.
Right.
But when they're putting it in, like you said, the next show is Kansas City, right?
Dallas.
Dallas. I'm sorry. So Dallas in the same weekend as as a sports show at somewhere else.
Don't believe so. I believe they've got that one by itself, but they definitely, that's the one thing that I think if Collecticon won, I mean, I'm sure they're going to take this as a success no matter what, because the crowds were just enormous, but I think they would be missing a golden opportunity to create something incredible if they could get some more sports in there. Now, I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see the next one to see if it's going to be straight up TCG style, the whole way, or is more sports and more sport tables, are they going to be implemented as the show goes on? Because a lot of these tables, are following the show too. Yeah. And so I'm curious to see. I hope not only because I collect sports, but what I was seeing at the PSA tables was a mix of Pokemon and sports. Like, it wasn't people just bringing TCG; they were bringing tons of sports.
They might have been bringing the sports stuff on, solely because PSA advertised that they were going to be there taking submissions.
Yes, but so I'm just saying, like, the crossover of people that collect both is so big that I think Collecticon's missing a golden opportunity if they don't get an increase in sports cards at the show. No, that would be my biggest critique from it.
No, I agree. Now, you also got to take into consideration the huge crowds may have been the fact that the show was in Orlando. Right. And you have a lot of people that, especially now when it's warmer down there than it is in a lot of other places in the country, they may come down and take the family and say, hey, we're gonna go to Disney or Universal or any of the other theme parks down there for a week. And while you kids go off to the theme parks for the last weekend or the first weekend or whatever the case is, I'm going to be here at this show. Yeah. And it's very possible that may have been the catalyst that brought so many people there.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what's going to happen, crowd wise when they come to a city where there really isn't anything like that.
Right.
Dallas, I think there's going to be big crowds just because of the population. It's a good, it's a very good sized city.
Yeah.
There is, the weather's nicer. There are some, decent things to do. They got great barbecue.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with that. And I'll say the same thing about Kansas City. I like the barbecue in both places. But I'm curious to see when they get to Kansas City.
Same here.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
What is there to do in Kansas City?
Right. I haven't even been, and I can tell you nothing.
I've been plenty of times. And the answer is, unless there's a Chiefs game going on,
right?
There's nothing, and there's not. And I'm not even counting the Royals because nobody really.
Yeah. Why would you? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where let's see how well it really attracts people by bringing it to a city that doesn't have a whole acreage of theme parks.
Yeah. No, I agree. I 100% agree, and it's going to be something interesting. But I do love seeing shows back up and everything and going on. I think it's awesome, and I like the idea of Collecticon. I think it has major staying power. The people that are running it seem to be, got their heads on their shoulders. They're doing everything right. But overall, it was an awesome weekend. So I'm looking forward to the future, but there's a lot of questions I have regarding not only the companies, but like you said, how it's recepted the rest of the year. What is that reception like in these other cities? But wasn't awesome.
Drew, I'm glad though you brought up, that it's being run by people who have a good head on their shoulders.
Yes.
Because I think it's a great lead into the next segment that we wanted to talk about.
Absolutely.
About a couple of people that have good heads on their shoulders that were brought in to run an existing organization that I don't want to say was failing. I think they were doing all right.
No, they had, but, they would, failing would be a bad word. I would say they're doing pretty good, but I think they kind of had almost plateaued, or the hype had calmed.
With the team that they had in place, plateaued is probably a good word, and they needed to bring in some fresh blood in order to do that. And frankly, the fresh blood that they brought in was some pretty heavy hitters, which I don't want to say it was a coup, but that's, I mean,
I'd love to,
don't get me wrong, I'd love to see a coup in other places right now, but what we're talking about is Collectable.
Yes.
And for those of you that don't know, Collectable is a fractional ownership company that allows you to buy, sell, and trade pieces of sports cards, memorabilia, some random things. My favorite thing that is on there that you can actually buy a piece of is a match used Andre the Giant jockstrap.
Yes. Awesome.
That is one of my favorite things. And I actually opened an account with Collectable a while back. And the reason I did it is because I wanted a piece of that 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth that they put up for partial sale. And next thing you know, I'm buying into all sorts of random stuff. And it's like, holy cow. But I think that the two new people that they brought in, and obviously we're talking about Joe Orlando and Ray Schulte.
Yes.
Not a lot of people may know Ray Schulte. Everybody knows Joe Orlando.
Yes. Now, Ray Schulte, just for those that don't know, he did sign on as he is the director of communications for the National. So Ray Schulte is the man that really is responsible for the National, and he hosts the Industry Summit. So Ray Schulte's got his hands in a lot of different things, and he is now a special advisor for Collectable. So
they could use it.
Yes.
Which is good. And then obviously everybody knows Joe Orlando. Love him, hate him, don't really think anything about him. Yeah. You at least know who he is. Ran Collectible Universe forever, which encompasses PSA.
And the Joe Orlando man was that hire was a big one because look, Collectible about 5-6 days before Joe Orlando was announced, maybe a week. Dan from Collectable, one of the founders, announced that he was stepping down. Now, I know the guys from Collectable very well. We've done live. Let me get that Pottergraph specials with Dan. We've had Ezra on the show. I'll be at the Mint speaking on the Collectable stage. I know these guys very well, but when Dan left, people don't realize how much he was doing for that company. And when I saw that he had stepped away to do other ventures, I was concerned for Collectable. I was like, okay, you're losing one of the biggest and really the best guys you have on this team. And I was really curious. I was like, kind of like you, it felt like it had plateaued a little bit. It wasn't rising. It didn't have the massive hype it had before. And so then seeing him walking away, I was concerned a little bit. But then a couple days later, you get this news that Joe Orlando's in, Ray Schulte's in. I mean, it really looks like they're gearing up and prepping this, almost taking it to that next level. We got the base foundation down. Now let's go all in. And
I'll tell you, I wasn't as concerned, when I heard that Dan was stepping away. And the reason I wasn't concerned is because you don't know, and I never really get concerned when, one of the founders and leader of an organization, steps away, because there may be a whole number of reasons as to why he did it.
I shouldn't say concerned. I was just more like shocked. It was odd. It was just odd timing to me. But.
And that that I can understand. Because you always have various reasons as to why somebody would step away from an organization. Yeah. It could be family, it could be another opportunity popped up that they couldn't do at the same time that was a massive passion of theirs that they've always wanted to do. And I've been in that situation myself. Right. Where I've stepped away from something because an opportunity came up to do something that I was extraordinarily passionate about. Yeah. And I couldn't. I just couldn't pass up the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
so from that standpoint, I don't, and obviously we don't really know what it was that, why Dan stepped away, and that's fine. That's his business.
Yeah, it's his,
But I wouldn't say that would be a level of concern, as far as the health of the organization, things like that. But I would say the bringing on Joe, again, love him or hate him, he's successful. He knows the industry.
Brilliant business mind in this industry. I don't care how your feelings are. Brilliant business mind.
And he's a collector himself.
Yes.
Which is huge. I think Dan's a collector too, from what I understand. But and frankly, I don't think anybody would wind up doing business with somebody who starts a company like that in this industry who is not a collector of some sort. Because it's like, all right, now you're just in it. You're just in it for the money.
Yeah.
And granted, that's what the platform is really about. It's an investment platform. It's about the money. Yeah. But if you're going to do it, and you're going to work with somebody, because look, all of these other platforms have popped up out there. Collectible, Alt,
Dibs.
Dibs. Thank you. That was the only one I was thinking of.
Rally.
They've all popped up, and they're all competing for the same. They're all competing for the same investment pieces.
Yes.
Which is
the same client pool. I mean,
well, that's exactly what it is. I know people who have put cards up for sale through Collectable and through Rally and through through Alt. But now I don't think any of the other companies have a name as big as Joe Orlando. And I think the only way to really top that would be if somebody hired, Ken Golden.
Yeah. What name's going to top that?
Or frankly, I could actually see Nat Turner getting involved in something like this, and even just as an investor, or board member or something like that, because it's it's something that's right up his alley. Those are really the only two names, or a major athlete. If Michael Jordan were to get involved, or we know Kevin Durant is involved in a lot of other things. I think he owns he's part of the ownership group that purchased a piece of Golden. So anybody like that. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason Derek Jeter stepped away from the Marlins.
Yeah, right.
Is maybe he's getting involed with Alt. Who knows?
Who knows? Fidelity is.
I'm just saying. I'm just guessing. That's just. There's no concrete evidence that I have that is the reason for that.
No, I'm putting it on record. Jeter's buying Alt.
And that's sort of so. No. But who knows? We don't know. Look, the dude's got a ton of money. We know. Look, we know A-Rod's been getting into a lot of stuff. Although I don't think his name really, carries the same weight as like Jeter, or Michael Jordan, or LeBron, or
might carry weight, just the opposite kind of weight he wants.
Well, that's probably true. You got to weigh it down. But the other guys, David Beckham. I'm just like I said, I'm just thinking of like big names in in sports in general that could potentially pop in and
this for Collectable, the timing of this is nothing short of impeccable, because you've got the Mint coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
They are one of, they've got their own collectible stage. They're one of the biggest companies that's involved in the Mint. Getting both of those names coming on right on board, that's going to draw a lot of attention to your booth from people that might not be into it before.
Now, I will say just to kind of put it out there, and this isn't a negative on Collectable at all.
Yeah.
But the reason they have their own stage at Mint is because they ponied up the cash to have their own stage at Mint. If you and I wanted to put together that kind of capital, we can have let me get that potograph stage.
Yes, of course we could, but I just see this as them. None of these other fractional share, nobody else stepped up. So this to me shows I think nobody stepped up because push forward.
I think nobody stepped up in that situation because Collectable already had it locked down by the time anybody
probably
could have, and there they definitely, there's got to be a non-compete in there somewhere.
To prevent that from happening. So
they were one of the first, in the fractional ownership space. They're, definitely one of the biggest that's out there, and they're, one of the most well known.
Mm-hmm.
And, because of that, everybody comes to them first.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to sponsor a stage? Do you want to have part ownership in this show? Or, any number of things. Do you want to have the giant corporate booth at the National?
Right.
And it would be kind of cool. And maybe this is something that, the Joe can bring to the table, but let's see some non-sport stuff in there. You know what I haven't seen? Which would be an interesting piece. And this, I'm going to tie this back to the first show that I, officially came on as a co-host at the beginning of the year. Put Logan Paul's
there you go
BGS 10 Charizard up there and sell shares of that. I don't know whether or not he'd do it, but that would be a huge thing. Or if the or another big TCG card that's out there, or non-sport, we don't really see anything up there. Or a guy like Charlie Sheen digs into his closet, pulls out any number of the baseball memorabilia that he's got. I think at one point he had Babe Ruth's World Series ring.
Oh yeah, no, he's got an incredible collection.
I think he's been selling it off over the years.
Of course he has. You got to fund cocaine and hookers some way, man. I mean,
I know. Well, I was gonna say HIV treatment, but
both of them.
But he's I think he's been piecing that out over the over the last couple of years. But something like that would be amazing. Where he can recoup an investment. It's going to draw a lot of people because not only
factor alone.
Yeah, like the ring, Babe Ruth's ring. Okay, it, in and of itself is an absolutely amazing piece that's going to draw, thousands of investors. But knowing that it's the World Series ring that was also owned by Charlie Sheen,
right?
Might add an additional layer of it.
Oh, easily. I 100% believe that when you can trace down the legacy of all of that stuff, it absolutely adds value. Look at the Gretzky, Wagner, all that stuff. There's a million examples. But before we wrap up on Collectable, I do want to ask you, with these hires here, with Joe and everybody coming in, what do you think this does for not only Collectable, but for the fractional share ownership? Do you think that getting these guys in here, these big names that people in the hobby that may not be in fractional ownership now and maybe be on the fence about it, do you think that, what do you think that these names are going to have an effect on in that fractional ownership? Do you think it makes it a little bigger? Do you think people, what do you see?
Well, as far as I've got a couple of different views on that. As far as the industry itself, I think it is going to lend it a little bit more legitimacy. I mean, not that it didn't have legitimacy before.
Right.
But
right.
I think the biggest impact is having those two at Collectable is going to draw people who currently own these pieces that they want to put out there and sell a portion of to Collectable, as opposed to Rally or Dibs or Alt. As far as the people who are getting into the fractional ownership, whether it's going to draw in new people or not, I think it all depends on what comes to market. I had no desire to get into fractional ownership in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But I wanted a piece of that 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
And especially $3 a share. That's a no-brainer. And that I think is going to be the driving force between it. But there's always going to be that group of collectors that won't touch fractional ownership at all because they can't actually hold it in their hand.
Right.
I have always been one of those people that I just want to have it. I want to hold it. I want to go into my office. I want to open a box whenever I want, and I want to look at it. This is the reason I don't do NFTs.
Yeah.
You know, I don't do any of the, you know, the blockchain stuff.
Right.
I don't do the digital.
Right.
And I want to be able to walk into my office. I want to be able to open a box. I want to be able to hold it whenever the hell I want it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to have to look at it on screen or, you know, or whatever. The way I view fractional ownership, I view it the same way that I'm viewing the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, each of those individual cards, it's an investment. It's a stock.
It is.
I had to shift my mentality.
Yes.
In order to be able to do that. And I don't think that there's a lot of people that are in this industry that, you know, that are true collectors that really care. They want to own it. If they have the money, they want to own it. Yes. They want to have it. And even if it's a, you know, multi-million-dollar card that's sitting in a safe deposit box somewhere or, you know, in a vault, you know, whatever, just the fact that they know that they can make a phone call or click a button or hop in the car and drive to the bank and actually hold it.
Yeah.
It's a different mentality, and it's for fractional ownership it's not for the collector. It's for the investor.
Yeah.
So I don't think the people that are pure, true collectors are going to jump into it no matter what.
Right.
And whether or not you bring in new people to it is all going to depend on what comes to market and what is out there from an investment standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you from on that aspect.
You know, as long as we don't get to the point where, you know, kind of like how people trade penny stocks now.
Yes.
As long as we're not, you know, getting out there and trading, you know, penny cards.
Right.
You know, where you wind up with a $50 card that's got, you know, shares that, you know, they're equivalent to a penny or two. As long as we don't get to that point, we're okay. And so far we haven't. I think everything that I've seen has so far been what, $10,000 plus.
Collectable has opened it up to where you can do much lower now. Now there is not $5-10 cards like we're talking.
No.
Like
but I think originally, what were they originally? 25,000?
Yeah, something like that. It has grown a little more since then. As I still think. I mean, we're obviously in the infancy of all this stuff, and so we don't know what the true end game is for them. But like you said, I think if they can stay away from the penny stocks and all of that, or the penny cards, quote unquote, so to speak, I think I see this as a massive move. And I actually do think that a lot of people will be getting into the fractional share ownership type of deal this year because of the fact that I think you're going to see a lot of people maybe submitting their own cards to be fractionalized, as you can do that a lot easier nowadays than you used to be able to. But
one thing that's actually a good, I want to pause it there because that is a really good lead in to something we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So while you're listening to that, I want you to think about the fact that, you know, a lot of people are probably going to be getting into this because one, it's easier, but two, for the reason we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. So hold that thought, Drew.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll hold it. Absolutely, man. Well, that's a perfect timing because we've got some message. Oh, shit. I'm trying to think of a good. Okay, hold that thought. All right, I'll hold that thought while you guys take a listen to these messages.
I just cut it off there because of time, really.
Yeah, me
too. That was kind of a good lead into what we talk about the boom.
It is, but but we needed to move. Yeah, dude, you see what just happened with Calvin Ridley?
No,
suspended for all of 2022 for betting on NFL games.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Apparently, he was betting on an app that was like legal, and it was legal in the state. But he was flagged, caught, suspended for 2022, and he just posted on Twitter, "I know I was wrong, but I'm getting 1 year LOL."
Did he? What's it called?
Haven't looked into if he was betting on his own games or anything like that.
that would have warranted a lifetime ban.
They just announced it literally 5 minutes ago. It's just breaking.
Damn.
Okay. All right. So
movers and shakers.
Movers and shakers. All right. So okay.
I have a group of movers and shakers.
Okay, so what do you mean?
I have a
like
group,
same sport, couple people, or like
one topic that sort of ties them all together.
Okay, well then, for movers and shakers this week, let's do a special edition since we're running a little long anyway, and we'll talk about just your guys.
Yep, that works.
Okay,
and I think you're gonna like this.
All right, so I'll bring us back in, and then I'll let you kick it off and explain everything. All right,
perfect.
And welcome back, everybody, to episode 138 of Let Me Get That Potograph. And now, guys, it is time for the segment that has taken the nation by storm. You know the deal. It's time for movers and shakers. And, guys, this week we're going to do a little bit different. Scotty Boy here has got some awesome ones here. So I'm going to let Scott take the floor over right now and kick us off with this week's movers and shakers.
All right, so I'm going to get a little serious on you, Drew.
Oh, geez.
Because this week's movers and shakers, it's kind of touching. It kind of hurts a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But this week's movers and shakers are all of the Ukrainian athletes that have either gone back to Ukraine or stayed in Ukraine to help fight the invasion.
Yes.
And we've got some big names that are part of this group. We have boxers, we have UFC fighters, we have Olympians in various sports.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the guys are retired, but there's still some memorabilia and stuff like that out there. Vitali and Vladimir Klitschko are both out there. And obviously Vitali is the mayor of Kiev.
That's the one man I don't want to see with a gun, angry, walking towards me. Nope. Bye. I'm out of here.
Agree that. And I'll tell you, I used to run into Vitali and Vladimir all the time because they had a house in the northern suburbs of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Used to see them out there on the streets. They completely straight up were two of the nicest guys that you will meet. And you are absolutely right that I would not want to run into them on the no. the bad end of a barrel, in a darkened alley somewhere. But a couple of the other guys that are in here that, we really need to take a look at, Vasily Lomachenko.
Yep.
Is definitely in there. We're talking about, he was an Olympic gold medalist, boxer, 2-time world champion. Alexander Usyk.
Yes.
Another boxer. I am going to completely butcher his name, but Sergei Stakhovsky is a tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
Won 4 ATP tour titles in his, throughout his career. Yaroslav Amosov. He fights in Bellator.
Yes.
We've got a former Arsenal defender, Ole Luzhin, and I'm going to butcher that name again too, but, Luzhinyi. And he's the first Ukrainian guy to ever win a Premier League title, with Arsenal. We've got a lot of these people that are and some of them that we haven't had a chance to name. We had a UFC pay-per-view over the weekend. One of the women who won, was Ukrainian, went out there, talked about her family. So take a look at them. There's a ton of stuff out there for all these guys.
Yes.
They're worth collecting. They're worth researching. They're worth talking about because they said, screw it to the money. And they are doing this straight up for pure pride and for their people.
Yeah, the love of their families, their community, their country. I completely agree, and that's why I'm not even going to have one this week. I don't think there's any names that are more deserving to be on the movers and shakers list this week than the people that you just named and the others that are out there, all of them.
Yep.
But you know,
and there's a lot we're leaving off, but
yes, there are.
We're not forgetting about you. And I will tell you, Drew, I didn't even tell you I was doing this for my movers and shakers this week.
No, I know.
So, so that was, kind of, like I said, it was kind of a serious movers and shakers this week.
Yes.
On a lighter note, kind of just touching on Ukraine a little bit. If you guys want to laugh your ass off, you guys know Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, used to be an actor and a comedian prior to this. There is a YouTube video out there.
Yes.
It is in Ukrainian with no subtitles, but you don't even need to understand the language to laugh your ass off. Yeah. He was part of a talent show back in like 06, 07, somewhere in that range, and went out there with a comedy partner of his and played the piano with his penis.
Yes.
Or so it appeared.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you guys, I don't speak the language. I'd love to have subtitles on there. You don't really need them.
No, you don't.
Because it's one of the funniest things I've seen all year.
Yeah.
It's totally worth checking out. So go look it up. It's on YouTube.
No, absolutely. And guys, definitely this is, like Scott said, these guys are really, they're risking their lives, and these are all millionaires risking their lives to go fight for their country just for the pure love of everything. And from a collector standpoint, which, obviously is what this is, we'll bring it right back to collecting. If you're a collector, how could you not want some card of someone like that in a collection? Someone that's got that much pride, that much just decency as a human in an era where there's so much bullshit all the time. Yep. Seeing something so amazing like that, I mean, yeah.
And whether or not it's a card, it may, there may not be, obviously UFC, the UFC fighters have had cards the last couple of years. There's boxing cards that have been out there for a couple of years, but there's a lot, there's a lot of things, especially for the boxers, there's autographed gloves, that are floating around in the market. My buddy Chris Guzman, who's not a well-known name within, kind of our listener base, but he is the official artist of the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. His medium for art is boxing gloves themselves.
Okay.
He will paint anybody, anything on a boxing glove. And there's a lot of the boxers themselves that he's done pieces of over the years. If you can find a piece of his, sometimes they're autographed, sometimes they're not. It is absolutely amazing, amazing work.
Nice. Awesome. Well, guys, definitely check that out as well. But yeah, man, that was a great movers and shakers. I didn't know where you were going when you said you had one, but I completely love it and applaud all of those athletes and everyone that is over there and that took, they could be sitting on a couch making millions. Instead, they're going over there and doing some amazing stuff. So a little golf clap out there for them. But yeah, that'll wrap up this week's episode of Movers and Shakers. But Scotty boy, you told us earlier, right before the break, to wait for just a little bit. So let's pick it back up from where we were before the break.
All right. So you had mentioned before the break that there's going to be a lot more people that are going to want to submit their collectibles for fractional ownership. And that kind of is a great lead into something that you and I were talking about earlier off the show, or, off the air. Is there going to be another boom in 2022?
Right.
And I know you've got some views on that, which you haven't shared with me, so you have no idea what my reaction to that is going to be. I've got some things, about it that I haven't, talked to you about. So I'm kind of curious from your aspect. You've been talking to a lot of people. This will be one of those situations where we'll go with anonymous sources.
Absolutely.
But they, everybody that I know you've talked to about this are, well known within the, within the industry. Big spenders, big, So what have you heard from these people.
From everyone, that's kind of why I brought the topic up to you before the show, and I thought it was something I really wanted to address on here, because from everyone that I've been speaking to, and I try and talk to as many people as I could, and I had saw that someone had kind of mentioned that they were very bullish on the rest of this year. And so I started talking to some people, asking a bunch of people a bunch of different questions. But from everything that I see, and from the shows that I'm seeing, and everything, just from everyone I've talked to and everything, I'll make a prediction right now on this show right here. It will not be 2020, but we're recording this on Monday, March 7th, so you can knock down the exact time. But I expect the second half of this year to rival what we saw at the beginning of COVID. I think that what you are going to see, it's not going to be like that, and it's not going to be base cards. It's not going to be all that other stuff. It's going to be completely different. I think, I don't know what the cards are going to be. I don't think it's going to be all high-end stuff like everyone says, that the high-end market is going to thrive and everything else is going to disappear. That's not going to happen. I expect a massive influx of new people, because Fanatics is not wasting any more time. 2022, Fanatics is going to be pushing out things like crazy. In fact, we'll be talking about what it is next week, but there is a website that launches tomorrow that is related to Fanatics in some way, shape, or form. Nobody knows exactly what it is, but go to zerocoolcards.com. And it is a Fanatics-related website that no one knows what it is, but it's coming soon. So Fanatics is laying out and getting the groundwork laid out to start putting out cards and having their name attached to it and really making that big push. That big push, in my opinion, is going to happen probably around lead up to the National. That's what I would expect. And I think that this year's National will not only rival, if not beat, the attendance of next year, but I think post-National, you are going to see the most hobby activity that you have seen since the massive boom of 2020.
So are we going to see guys lined up blocks deep for one blaster box of product?
I don't think that is going to happen. I think you're going to see it in a different way. I don't think you're going to see the Target, Walmart lines, that stuff. They price thresholded that out to the point where I don't think certain products possibly Prism, stuff like that, maybe. I don't even think they're going to wind up carrying that in the stores.
That's
the same thing. I was about to say.
Target probably won't carry it in the stores. Walmart might. But if they get smart from a security standpoint, they'll throw it on the website and let the bots have it.
I don't think you're going to see that type of stuff. I just think you're going to see the hobby in general. A boom is coming, and it's coming this year, and it's going to coincide with all of these moves that Fanatics is doing as they enter into the space. Because look, Fanatics, if there's one thing that they're good at, if there's one thing that they're amazing at, it is their fan base, because they go in, they buy everything, they own everything. You got to be there. They have a massive, massive user base. When you add in the cards and when their name is fully attached to them to the point where the casual person that's not a collector sees it, they're already on the website buying jerseys or whatever for their wife, whatever. I just see this as a massive, massive opportunity for another major, major boom. And from everyone that I've talked to, they're all expecting the same thing, that as Fanatics starts to roll out everything that's going on, and not just Topps products, Panini, everything, as this stuff starts to roll out, the amount of new people that are going to be coming into this hobby is going to be incredible. And Fanatics is not, and that's not just a guess on my game. That's literally what Fanatics has been telling us, that they're planning on bringing in 10 to 100 times more people. And so I see that as a second half Second half of this year, I see a massive boom in this industry.
I am going to take the opposite view.
Okay.
On that one. I think we're going to see, as far as the number of people in the industry, I think we're going to see contraction.
Wow.
I think we're going to see collectors selling off their collections, getting out, because in the world of $5 to $7 a gallon gasoline, supply chain issues, rampant inflation that's growing out of control. It's not, we may see, individual items get back up to the same dollar range that they were selling for,
right,
a couple of years ago. But when you adjust for inflation, that dollar is worth so much less, than it was 2 years ago.
Right.
Eventually it's going to crater the economy if it continues.
Yeah.
And as of now, and obviously there's a lot of factors at play that are, outside of the collectible world. Doesn't matter how well LeBron James plays this week. It doesn't matter that he put up 56 points over the weekend.
Yeah.
Eventually, the stuff's gonna, when the economy craters, those LeBron James rookie cards you're holding on to are going to crater as well. Now, whether or not they come back, they probably will. If you're holding it for a long-term investment, okay, that's not a bad idea. But if you're looking to, there's going to be people that are holding on to, to their stuff. We sometimes refer to them as cardboard rich.
Yeah.
They're not liquid,
right,
but they've got, a crap load of net worth, as you would say, tied up in cardboard.
Yes.
And eventually they're going to run out of liquidity to put gas in their car, to put food on the table. And because of that, everything else is going to wind up getting more expensive too.
Yeah. And
the way that they're not going to wind up making more money at, whatever job that they're doing. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to, sell off pieces of their, investment or in their collection, just to be able to live, how they've been living. So I think that there's a lot of factors at play, and it's very possible we may see a boom. It really, depends. Can we get, things outside the industry like oil production up? Can we, get this war in Europe over with?
Right.
And in the end, if, Putin decides to drop a couple of nukes, the value of whatever we have, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
We're all going to be dead and we can't take it with us.
Yeah.
So, I kind of have a pessimistic outlook on the industry just because of what's going on elsewhere.
Right.
In other industries. So, I hope you're right. I really do. No, I honestly do. I hope you are right. I hope I am flat out wrong.
Well, I mean, the stuff with gas and everything and inflation and everything, it absolutely could. And it might not be, like I said, I don't think we're going to see what we'll see in 2020, what we saw in 2020, but I do think I'm very optimistic that we're going to see a lot of new collectors come into the space. Now, whether I hope you're right. Not, whether that happens or not, we will have to wait and see, obviously. But, I do see it going that way. Guys, I'm interested to hear what all of you guys think. So make sure to comment on all the posts this week and let us know what you think. We're right into next week's mailbag, which speaking of the mailbag, Scott, before we wrap up today's show,
I think we got time for one.
Yeah, we got time for one question from the mailbag this week, and it's actually a really good one. It's one that I like a lot. It's from Robert Smith. I appreciate it, Robert.
Great. Is that a fake name?
I was about to say, if that is your real name.
Yeah, it sounds like a fake name.
It does. But he asked, let me make sure I get this correctly. Would you rather have long-term a card with a lower print run that has less eye appeal, or a higher print run with greater eye appeal?
Now I'm assuming he's talking about the same. I'm assuming he's talking about the same player on.
Yes, like same player. Like if you could pick a card, like if you could choose a card long term for investment standpoint, would you rather have a gold Tatis compared to a Color Blast or something? I don't know. Whatever it may be. Would you the aesthetic or the numbering?
So if I'm looking at it, I'm actually, it depends on how, because he didn't mention for investment.
Right.
So he just said, would you rather have?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to have a different answer for each.
Right.
If it's investment, I'm going to say the lower print run. But if it's, just for a PC, just something I enjoy looking at, stuff like that, I'll go with the higher print run with the better eye appeal. And you're right. I mean, I hate to use Prism and baseball in the same, thing, but I would rather have, as far as lower print run, I'd rather have I'm trying to think. Let's go with Luka.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have a gold Prism Luka versus a Color Blast.
Sure.
Now, I don't think they did Color Blast in 1819, but let's say it's 1920.
Yeah.
Whatever. So second year Luka, I'd rather have the gold Prism, which is the lower print run card, than a Color Blast because of you know what? Let's not use Color Blast. Let's use, Color Blast is fine. For investment, I'd rather have the gold. But if it's something that I want to display, put out there, something that just looks really cool, I'm going with the Color Blast, or the Kaboom, something along those lines that that pops. Now, I do kind of want to say gold prisms do kind of pop, so that does have a good eye appeal.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't the best,
No, I get you.
But if it's investment, I'm going lower print run.
Okay.
If it is strictly PC enjoyability, money doesn't matter, kind of thing, I'm going with the better eye appeal.
Okay, see, I've got a little different take on this, and I'm looking long term. If it's me, I'm going for the one that has the better overall eye appeal to the general public. If we're talking investing, because I look at cards in vintage and even some of the old school and in the 90s and things like that. You've got serial numbered cards that don't sell for anything, but then you've got those iconic looking, awesome looking, beautiful inserts that sell for tons of money and 10 times the price, and they're just a regular insert, such as this Kobe that's on my desk, like a Stardate 2001 from EX 2001. I would rather have that than some other Kobe's and things along those lines. Now, yes, when you get down to 10s and 1s, cards out of 10 and 101s, yeah. But for me, long-term value, I'm thinking, if it's me, I'm going for the look, because I look at the old school stuff and I say, okay, outside of their rookie year, take away the rookie year, go second, third, fourth year, whatever it is. If I'm looking at those cards and I see the ones that are going for the most, it's the ones that the people like the most. It's the ones with the nicest pictures. Those are the ones that I see selling for more. Those are the ones that I see having a proven track record of being more desirable because the eye appeal is there. And so I think as we get into this era of so many numbered cards and so much stuff, I think from this generation, honestly, I think we're going to look back and there's so many short prints that are beautiful, like you talked about, Color Blast, Kabooms, whatever it may be. Those are the ones that I would personally chase after. So when I read that question, I thought it was interesting. I wanted to pose it up here on the show because it's going to be interesting to see how people relate to the serial numbering 20, 30 years down the line. I think it's going to be a little different than it is right now. But that's just me.
It could be. And look, the reality is, take whichever one is going to wind up buying you the most blow and hookers.
Exactly.
Call it a day.
And then just hit Charlie Sheen up and get that Babe Ruth. Oh, well, guys, that is going to wrap up this week's episode of Let Me Get That Potograph. Scotty boy, it's good to be back, man.
You know, it's always, it's definitely good to be back. It's always good when you got a week where blow and hookers comes up multiple times.
Yes.
Throughout the same show. You know, we got a chance to talk about some weird things like Charlie Sheen. That we hadn't talked about before.
Yep.
And give some props to our
some amazing
some of our Ukrainian friends, over there that are leaving behind the world of sport and going into the world of war. Yeah. So, hopefully we'll have some brighter topics and some better things to talk about next week. Doubt it, but you know what? We can always hope.
Absolutely. One thing I know we will be talking about is Mr. Calvin Ridley, which by the time this airs, you'll know all about that and we'll touch on that next week.
I think, Calvin Pete Rose Ridley, if that gives you an indication as to what's going on.
Exactly. But once again, guys, that is going to wrap up this week's episode of Let Me Get That Potograph. Once again, I would like to thank our awesome sponsors, Card Ladder, Vintage Breaks, Card Crusade, and of course, Vanity Slabs. We could not do the show without you guys. And we will be back next week with an all-new episode. Make sure to check out Let Her Rip this week. All the other shows we have, Hobby Hotline on Saturdays, and everything else. But we will be back next week with an all-new episode. So, Scotty boy, talk to you next week, my brother.
See you, Drew.
Have a good one, fellas. And until next week, you guys know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits. We'll talk to you then. Peace.